On the 5th of July, 1948, the NHS was born. It began as an idea that ended up revolutionising people's access to care. Aneurin Bevan was a Welshman, and he grew up with a stammer. In 1945, he was appointed as the Minister for Health, which at that time was considered to be a relatively low-level post. I often wonder if he may have been discriminated against because of his stammer. Regardless, little did the Labour Party know that at that time, this boy, the son of a coal miner and seamstress, would go on to create the National Health Service. The Welsh Valleys boy, with a stammer, created the NHS. Hi, my name's Anna. What you see is that I'm white, middle-aged, and female. I'm also married with 2 children, just to complete the picture. For the last 23 years, I've worked hard and made a career in the NHS. However, the NHS wasn't my chosen career path. When I was a teenager, I knew that I was going to become a world-renowned actress, and I was well on my way to stardom. Or so I thought. The NHS was a means for me to make some extra cash while I waited for my big break. And here I am. Still waiting. The NHS is the largest employer in the UK. It employs 1.2 million people. And when we look at the age breakdowns of the UK's working population, naturally, you would expect a close alignment with the NHS age breakdowns. And for the most part, it does align, except for the under-25s. Nationally, under-25s working population represents 12%. In the NHS, under-25s working population represents 6%. 6%. For the largest employer in the UK, that is a considerable gap. According to the Office for National Statistics, a quarter of young people aged 16 to 19 were unemployed in 2022. As a reversal of trend in the UK employment history, there were more males unemployed than there were females. You could say that females are more ambitious, less choosy about where they work. Or maybe males are not quite the right fit the company is looking for. It could be as simple as they didn't gain the requisite qualifications from school and college during the pandemic, especially given the potential for bias from the teacher-predicted grades. Or maybe they had a learning disability which impacted their exam results. According to MenCap, there are 353,000 people, children, aged 0 to 17, with a diagnosed learning disability. And when we look at adults with a diagnosed learning disability, just 25% of these are actually employed. (25% employed. Now, if any of you has any experience of the NHS application process, then you'll understand me when I say that it's very much outdated and lengthy. I recently took the liberty of comparing the person specifications for 10 entry-level administration posts across the UK as advertised on the NHS Jobs website. A number of the posts asked for RSA2 qualification, city and guilds, a good level of education, and relevant experience working in a healthcare setting. Well, RSA2 and City and Guilds are not offered in schools. So for 16 to 19-year-olds, fresh out of school and college, is this even a realistic qualification? Equally, the opportunities for 16 to 19-year-olds to gain any experience working in a healthcare setting are limited. And what is a good level of education? What even are the levels? And what is good? I'm sure every single one of you would give a different response based on your own personal circumstances and experiences. For example, to me, a good level of education could be, yep, did all right, went to school, got a couple of GCSEs at grade B. However, for my son, who's dyslexic, a good level of education could be getting Ds in maths and English. In fact, my son did get Ds in his GCSEs. And he wanted to do the higher IT course at college, a choice supported by his school and his college tutors. But because of his D grades, his point score fell short and he was automatically disregarded. No discretion applied. He spent 3 years in further education, taking courses he didn't want to take just so he could complete his GCSEs. My dyslexic son took his English GCSE 4 times, and he got a D. Every single time. So he left education, and he went to work for a global fast food chain. The company he works for are well known for employing a lot of young people. So I decided to check out their website. And you know what? It made me want to work for them. Their main careers page starts by saying, "Let's be part of something together." Immediately, my attention is piqued. It's inclusive, and I'm only at the first page. It tabs you through the options, why work here, and what we offer. What they offer. They're not judging you by asking, what do you bring to the table? It talks about values, inclusion, integrity, community. I mean, I honestly think the NHS is missing something here. And if we think in terms of my son's transferable skills, well, he's an excellent researcher. He's customer-focused. He has exceptional IT skills. He has an eye for detail and a memory for dates and actions. So this is where I started thinking about the points-based recruitment processes. And what if my son's further education was based on ability and not scores? As a manager who employs into positions in the NHS, I recently undertook some recruitment training. The training reinforces the importance of scoring points to the applications and to the applicants at interview. It also reinforces that the job should be offered to the person who scored the highest. The Royal They say this is the fairest way to employ. But is it really? A 16 to 19-year-old is not going to be as confident at completing a job application as a 30-year-old is, let alone someone who is neurodivergent. What if they smashed it at the interview? They're exactly what you're looking for, but their points fell short because they missed a few key words in their application. You could employ the person that scored the highest, but actually has no work ethic. It's all down to the individual person. So, points-based system. Does it work? Is it fair? And are we subconsciously or even consciously disadvantaging young people and therefore stifling our ability to transform the future of the NHS by not giving the next generation a chance? When my daughter was 16, she was one of the first people to work in the administration side of our local vaccination centre. She was competent. She quickly understood the computer system. And she was welcoming to patients who maybe hadn't had any human interaction for months. And she was instrumental in responding to an IT outage just by simply suggesting a paper alternative to booking the patients in. This meant the patients could receive their vaccinations that day and not be sent home, therefore reducing disruption to their care and their anxieties. In that moment, her opinion mattered. Her voice was heard and her ideas were put into action. My 16-year-old daughter, who was still at school. At 19, what is she doing now? Well, she's returning to full-time education because despite every application to the NHS that she has submitted, they've all been unsuccessful. Despite her having a good level of education and the all-important relevant experience working in a healthcare setting. There are 1.2 million people employed in the NHS, and just 6% of them are under 25. Now, I've had the unique opportunity to work with young people. For the last 10 years, I've been a Scout leader. And more recently, I went to the World Scout Jamboree. I spent 3 weeks with peers and young people from across 170 countries worldwide. And you know what? There is such an amazing variety of diversity and neurodivergent people across the Scouting community. As we know there is out in the real world. But I feel as if in Scouting, the young people are not so afraid to be themselves. Maybe this is because they don't feel they have to hide the parts of themselves that don't conform to the realms of society's pressures. And because they don't feel they have to hide who they are the absolute best version of themselves that they will ever be. So, what can the NHS learn from how we approach Scouting? Well, okay. Scouting is a youth-led organisation, but it needs older people to coach and mentor. In Scouting, we collaborate and listen to young people. We support, enable, and empower them. And we actively encourage them to be their authentic selves. This is transferable. This is something we can all do. So I ask, when you're next recruiting into positions in your team, that you think about the skills and the voices that you are missing, and to be intentional in seeking these people out. We can't keep going through the same processes and expecting radical changes in the results. It simply does not happen. And let's acknowledge that we, the middle-aged folk who think we know best, don't actually know everything. And let's put some trust in our youth. We've raised them. Let's have the humility to step aside and let the next generation Let's give them, the next generation that will be looking after us, give them a chance.